Welcome to Podcast on the Brink, your weekly dose of Indiana basketball news and discussion, brought to you by the Assembly Call and Inside the Hall. I'm your host, Jerod Morris. Join me live at assemblycall.com every Thursday night and immediately following every IU game for our live IU postgame show. And visit InsideTheHall.com for complete coverage of IU basketball and to join the discussion in the Inside the Hall Premium Forum.
Indiana basketball mini-series tickets are now available online at iuhoosiers.com. Both 5-game and 3-game packages are now available, featuring games against Louisiana Tech, South Dakota State, Arkansas, Northwestern, and Ohio State. Come check out your Indiana Hoosiers for these games over break inside beautiful Simon Scott Assembly Hall. You can visit iuhoosiers.com for more information. Go IU!
All right, Alex. Well, it is the day before Thanksgiving as we record this. Indiana currently 6-0. And I thought we would just kind of take this opportunity to take stock of what we've seen, what we feel like we've learned, what we still need to learn as we approach the Thanksgiving holiday, and then obviously the tougher December schedule to come. But I think it's interesting to frame the conversation like this, coming on the heels of what we saw last night, which was a thrilling victory for Stephen F. Austin over Duke. It was amazing. I'm glad I hopped on Twitter and just happened to see a tweet from Gary Parrish that talked about how it was a close game, so I turned it on and got to see the end of it. And that final play, like if you haven't seen it, I mean, you probably have by now by the time you're listening to this, but that final play by Stephen F. Austin was incredible. The ability for that guy to make that layup and just a great game. But it made me think, because Stephen F. Austin, I think, coming into the game was ranked 264th. And that's a game I think Duke was, like a 99.97% favorite on Ken Palm. It was one of those games. And, you look at that, and everybody for Duke, just assumed that was going to be a victory. And it wasn't, and they're a young team kind of trying to find their way, going through some ups and downs. And I say that just because it does frame what Indiana has done so far. We've had all these games, and we've talked about how poor the schedule is, and 5 games against teams currently ranked 218th or less. And there is something to be said, Alex, especially for a young team, for just taking care of business at home and winning those games all by double digits or more, even with their imperfections, even with C+ level defense, if we're being, maybe if we're being charitable. There's something to be said for winning those games. And so I think that was, from an Indiana perspective, looking at, maybe what you can take away from that game, you should take those wins over, teams that are 250 or worse for granted. But at the same time, things like that, what happened at Duke, can happen. And Indiana has avoided that and even avoided any close shaves. And that in and of itself is at least something to kind of take and hang your hat on for what we've seen, over this first month of the season.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot this month that Indiana just can't afford to lose these games, but I think we have not done maybe a great job of giving them credit for actually winning the games, because when you look around the country, and just a lot of teams right now are struggling to beat lesser competition. Of course, we've talked in the past about Kentucky's loss, and then I think this Duke loss is obviously a little bit worse than what happened to Kentucky. But I think a couple things from a national perspective, talking a broader picture right now in college basketball. I just think the overriding theme so far this season is there's no great team. There's not even, if you were voting in the AP poll right now, like my dad is, it's going to be a lot more challenging than in years past, because all these teams that are your traditional powers have already taken some bad losses, and it's kind of hard to reconcile all that at this point of the season. There's just no group of teams that you're confident in saying, well, I feel pretty good that this team's going to at least make it to the second weekend of the tournament, or this is going to be an Elite Eight team, or this is going to be, there's been years in the past where we'll be really shocked if this team isn't in the Final Four. I don't feel like there's one team this year where you can kind of point to and say, this is going to be a team that you can trust come March. So I think it's going to make a fascinating year in college basketball if you're a fan of the sport. And I think how that trickles down to Indiana is, I think before the season, if you asked most people if they thought this was going to be a tournament team, they would probably tell you fringe, maybe no. Like if you had to bet before the season, like if you were just going to take the odds and say, is this a tournament team or not? And now you look around the country and you're saying, well, why can't they be, right? There's a lot of maybe good teams, teams that we think can be good. Michigan State's one of them. We think they could be good by the end of the season if everything comes together, but they're certainly beatable.
By the way, they're ranked number 1 in KenPom right now.
Yeah, and I've gotten some questions about that, and the thing you got to remember there is there's so much of last year's data still in there. I don't think it's till something in January until all that falls off.
Yeah, it's just so weird seeing a 2-loss team up there at number 1.
Yeah, I mean, they're being propped up by what they did last year, but as it relates to Indiana and the Big Ten at large, I mean, you look around the conference right now. Wisconsin, who I was a believer in going into the season, they've already taken 3 losses. Granted, those are all top 100 KenPom losses, but they're not looking as good as many people thought. You look at what Iowa has done to this point; haven't really beaten anybody. Took that terrible loss at home to DePaul. There's optimism, reasons to be optimistic if you're an IU fan. It's maybe not going to be a great year in terms of teams in college basketball, but for a team like Indiana that's trying to kind of break through and get to the tournament, you look at the national landscape and you look at the Big Ten and say, why not? Why can't we be one of those top 5 or 6 teams in the league?
Yeah, and I agree with everything that you said. And now what we're gonna have to wait and see with Indiana when December comes is, okay, now what can this team do against better teams? And finally, Indiana was able to face a team that is at least top 100 in Louisiana Tech. I mean, they're a solid opponent. I mean, Wisconsin has lost 2 games already to teams basically ranked right around where Louisiana Tech is. So again, just another example of don't take these wins for granted. The fact that Indiana went out, dominated them early, still held on for the 13-point lead, it's an impressive victory. It's impressive what they did, even with all the warts on there. But and Indiana now has one more game against South Dakota State, who has jumped into the top 200, by the way. They're no longer a sub-200 opponent. And then things get real, with Florida State and Wisconsin and Connecticut. No great teams, but obviously all better. But I just wanted to, take a few minutes here, Alex, and let's just kind of talk about what we feel like we know about this team. And, one thing that I was looking at, because a lot has been made about how Indiana's offense is a lot better and the defense isn't playing very well this year. But, we don't really know maybe how to judge that because of what the competition level has been. But let's just look back to last year, right? In 2019, Indiana faced 5 teams in the non-conference that were sub-200. Similar to this year, Indiana's faced 5 teams that are sub-200. How did the offense and defense do in those games? Well, last year, the offense averaged 1.198 points per possession. The defense averaged giving up 0.742 points per possession, an efficiency margin of 0.456. So that's not adjusted. That's just raw numbers. But you contrast that with this season. In Indiana's 5 games against sub-200 competition, the offense is at 1.264 points per possession, so much better, which is interesting given what the narrative was coming into the season, which is, without Romeo and Juwan, how would this team score points? And even with the revolving door in the backcourt, the offense has been better. But the defense, as expected, has been worse, giving up 0.896 points per possession. That's an efficiency margin of 0.368. So the offense is better than last year. The defense is worse. Overall, the efficiency margin was better. Take all of those numbers with a grain of salt. They're not adjusted. They're just raw numbers. But I do think it's interesting just to give it a little bit of context that against similar level of opponents, the offense has objectively been better. And I think that matches what we've seen with the eye test. The transition offense is better. The movement is better. The sharing of the ball is better. The commitment to getting the ball inside and getting to the free throw line is better. The shooting has been better. But at the same time, on the other end, this team is really struggling right now defensively. So, it's going to be interesting to see how those trends continue when Indiana plays better competition. But it does feel like after 6 games, there are real improvements to grasp onto with the offense that we can talk about, and that there are some real deficiencies defensively. Like, I don't think these are just now, random things from playing some bad teams. Like, I think we're seeing some real trends that are going to continue into December, and it'll be interesting to see how much of the offense Indiana can hold on to and how much of the defensive issues they can improve upon. to see how many of those games they're going to win, because they, as we've said many times, they've got to make hay in December and not let too many of those non-conference opportunities for big victories pass them by.
Yeah, and with the eye test, I mean, I agree with you. Offensively, there's just a lot, I think, to be excited about. 3-point shooting is just okay, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be a big piece of the puzzle.
Which is a vast improvement, by the way.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, the attempts I don't think are ever going to be high enough to where it matters in a huge way. Now, they might have some games at home where they get hot and hit 7 or 8, 10 in a game, and you're like, wow, they won that game because they made threes, but it's not going to be a regular theme like we saw, back under the old regime where Indiana could come out and hit 16 or 18 and blow a team out of the gym. That's just not going to be the way this team wins games. However, what I do like, you mentioned the ball movement, the unselfishness, the willingness to get multiple people involved. I think there's going to be kind of a hierarchy in terms of the leading scorers, 2 or 3 guys that are kind of going to stay in that probably 13 to 14 point per game range when the dust settles. I think there's also going to be kind of a grouping below that where, maybe a different guy each night goes out and gets you 12 to 15, because as a product of just how well this team is moving the ball and how unselfish they've been, and how they've kind of done a really good job of, I shouldn't say kind of, they've done an excellent job of drawing fouls and getting to the line. Now, I want to see if that can continue against better competition. I don't know how much of that is who they're playing and just kind of exploiting lesser opponents to be able to kind of impose their will and get to the line. But I think it's encouraging not only that they're getting to the line is the more important part, then knocking down the shots is also important, but they're also converting there at a much more efficient rate than they were a season ago. On the defensive side, and I think some people have asked me why Archie's looked a little bit more comfortable in post-game press conferences this year, a little bit just kind of not as intense. And I think my biggest takeaway from kind of his demeanor in these post-game press conferences is he likes this team. I think he feels like this team can become something, and he's challenged them, pretty much every post game defensively. And I think if there's one thing that we can count on with an Archie Miller coach team, is you're going to see improvement defensively as the season went along. His first year, they got torn apart early on by some objectively bad teams at Assembly Hall, and by the end of the year, they were, I think, a top 4 or 5 defense in the Big Ten. If you look at the Big Ten numbers, last year they were a good defensive team again. Right now, they're not anywhere close to where they need to be, and he said that. But I think they have the personnel and the pieces to get better as the season goes along. You have to remember they've been playing without Rob Phinisee at 100%. He's a big piece of the puzzle defensively. They're integrating new players in Armand Franklin and Trace Jackson Davis. And the one thing I've noticed with Trace is just how coachable he is on a possession-by-possession basis. Archie is pretty hard on him from the sidelines, and he's just kind of taking it in, soaking it up, and trying to listen and get better. So I think those guys are going to get better as the year goes along. Brink, I think, is limited in what he can do defensively, but I tweeted this the other night. The thing that kind of stands out about watching him up close is just how good of a communicator he is on the floor. He's always calling reads out. He's always loud with his teammates, and I think that was something that was missing from last year's team, and something that can be beneficial. I mean, if you're not going to be the most athletic or the quickest guy in the world, one thing you can do is just kind of be a better communicator, and that's one thing I think he's embraced. So you got to remember, Demeze's another guy, Jerome. These guys haven't played a lot of minutes, and so I think as the season goes along, guys get more comfortable. Race Thompson too is another one. I mean, this is a roster full of a lot of guys who are really getting their first major minutes at this level. So I think as the season goes along, they will get better defensively, but there are reasons, I think, for legitimate concern through these first 6 games. They can't continue to just allow team. We've talked about this before. just allow teams to be so comfortable with the ball and be able to kind of get to every spot that they want to. It just seems like things are coming a little bit too easy for opponents right now.
And I mean, based on what we know of the pack line defense, it makes sense why the defense is struggling this year. Because the pack line, two of the most important things for the pack line working are you've got to have ball pressure. You've got to have competent defenders against dribblers, which Indiana just, hasn't had. The two best guys that they have at doing that are Rob Phinisee and Devontae Green, who have been in and out of the lineup. And you need experience in the defense. And, ironically, here in Archie's third season, this is, at least to this point, the least experienced team that he's had. Indiana is 294th right now in experience. Last year, they ended the season 279th in experience. And, his first team was 106th in experience, but it was all of their first years playing the pack line defense. And so, I guess, in a micro sense, I'm discouraged about where the defense is. But when I step back and look at it, I kind of get it. And I feel like there are a lot of reasons to believe that it will improve. From what you said, Archie's track record is that his defenses get better as the season goes along. Now, and I want to talk about this a little bit later with Rob Phinisee. I think you've got to get him back. I mean, I think that's a huge key, but I think getting he and Devontae back will help. And then just getting the young guys reps together. Like, I think there are reasons to believe that the defense will get better. And this also highlights something for me in a macro sense that I think is going to be so important for Archie building a consistent winner at Indiana. He's got to get old and stay old. Some of the roster turnover that we've had here early, you're going to have some of that when you're taking over a program. And, obviously he was fortunate to get a one and done guy in Romeo last year, and so Romeo and Juwan obviously took a lot of minutes with him. But now, you've got this group, you've got a few experienced guys, but you're still leaning on a lot of young guys. But also a lot of those young guys project to be back next year. And the guys Archie is bringing in as recruits, they project to be 3 and 4 year guys. So that's something as you project this defense forward, look, say what you want about the pack line. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. But this is what we have. This is what we're building the program on right now. And for it to succeed, you've got to have that experience and just kind of institutional knowledge. And we're building some of that, with the coaches and some of the guys who have been here. But we're also just going to have to get guys who have a lot of reps in it. And this team doesn't have that right now, but they're building it. And so I think that's it kind of explains the struggles we've had. I think it's reason for concern in December because I don't think the defense is going to magically get better that quickly. But I think it also gives me some optimism long term that there's a lot of room for growth. And if you combine that with what I think so far is a really smart offensive strategy, I have some questions about how this offense is going to be when it gets scouted more and when it plays against better athletes that can compete with our guys on the inside, can take away some of the easy transition looks, are going to be able to contain Al Durham off the dribble. Like, what happens then when we're in more isolation situations and when we have to go to option B and C because what we want to do is taken away? I have a lot of questions there, especially if you tell me Rob's going to be out. I think I like what I've seen from the offense. I think it'll be able to adapt better because I think there's a smart game plan going on, but I have questions. But I think hopefully as the offense maybe hits some struggles or hits some adjustment time, you start to get some of that improvement from the defense. That to me is going to be kind of the recipe for keeping your head above water in December, early January, as you start to play against some of these better teams. So I'm really interested to see how that happens. And we know the offense is going to start being a little bit less efficient. How much less efficient, and can the defensive improvement that I think we all expect, can that help to compensate for that? That to me is going to kind of write the story of the next 4, 5, 6 weeks, which are very, very important weeks for Indiana when it comes to setting up their tournament resume.
Right. And I think you look at the KenPom numbers, and I don't have the rankings for where they are in defense and offense in front of me right now. But I think the best case scenario is probably those numbers kind of are almost even, right? I mean, realistically, the offense is probably going to kind of take a little bit of a dip, if maybe not as 15, 20 spot dip when the competition level improves, but then you want the defense to kind of prop itself up to around the same level. I think best case scenario for this team is that they're hypothetically ranked around the same spot nationally. But I think as I've watched this team now for 6 games in the exhibition, the thing that has me most concerned going into this next stretch of games, and we'll see. South Dakota State is obviously a game that most people expect Indiana to win, but they have to get through that. But you look at after this game, it's all high major teams the rest of the way. The one thing that has me concerned is we've yet to see Indiana put together more than objectively 20 to 25 good minutes in a game. I think when you get to this next stretch of games, you're going to have to, you're not going to play a perfect 40-minute game. Even if you beat a really good team, you're going to have lulls in a performance, and you're going to have moments where you struggle. But I've yet to see this team put their foot on the gas and sustain the level of play that's going to be needed to win consistently in the Big Ten for a long enough stretch. I mean, we saw the other night against Louisiana Tech a really great start, a 23-point lead in the first half. And then we saw Indiana, just make some of the most ridiculous turnovers that I've seen in the second half. I mean, Ryan had he didn't even break down play by play. He just put a video up of all the turnovers for film session. And just when you go back and watch that, some of the passes that they tried to make, and I was just kind of, I think Archie was, some of his reactions on the sideline to it was literally like, guys, what are we doing? Like, these are passes that simply cannot be made. And I think that's the kind of thing that you look at and you say, this just cannot happen against better teams. And so I'm looking for, coming up this weekend, Indiana needs to play well for 25, 30, 35 minutes in the game. I mean, they need to show that they can consistently sustain the level of play, because it's not going to cut it playing well for 20 minutes against better teams. You can get away with it against the Portland States of the world. You can get away with it against probably even a Louisiana Tech at home. But when Florida State comes to town, and when they go to Wisconsin, and when they play UConn in the Garden, and et cetera, it's going to have to be 35 minutes of solid basketball. And so far, we have not seen a performance from Indiana like that. And I think it speaks to the inexperience of this team. And I think it's also on Al Durham and Devontae Green to say, hey, we've been through this before. Devontae Green's a senior, Al Durham's a junior. Those are the guys who have to step up and say, guys, when things start going bad, we have to figure out a way to kind of get back on track. You can't just keep having, because the other night they were fortunate that Louisiana Tech did not play well. I didn't think. The second half, Louisiana Tech really kind of squandered some opportunities. They had some chances where they could have got it under 10, and the whole, all of a sudden,
in the half.
Yeah, the game is just totally different if they can make some threes in the second half and get it a little bit closer. But Indiana's really just, they've got to lock in for more than 20 minutes, or they're not going to be able to get it done against better teams.
I agree. One note on the turnovers, because that's been a big topic out, since the Louisiana Tech game, and Archie even said they were embarrassing to start the second half. He's right. I will say, that stretch of turnovers was uncharacteristic. That has not been something this team has done this year. And that's one of the things that I like, is I really thought coming into the season, for a team that, as you mentioned, was not going to be a high-volume shooting team, even if we thought they could be more efficient this year, they were going to have to limit turnovers and be good on the offensive glass. And those are two habits that they've built through these first 6 games that I think have been pretty strong. They are top 100 in offensive and defensive turnover rate, and offensive and defensive rebounding percentage. And that's really good. I mean, defensive rebounding percentage, they're 20th in the country right now. And yes, those numbers are sure to go up when they face teams with better athletes, better rebounders. But what's so important in these games is habits and identity. And they've really made rebounding a big part of their identity. And that I think is good. And that's, I think, something that they can really kind of hang their hats on and continue, even as the competition gets better. Alex, have you started doing your Christmas shopping yet? Do you do your Christmas shopping at all before Thanksgiving, or do you save all of that for after Thanksgiving, when you've enjoyed your cranberry sauce and all of your favorite Thanksgiving items?
My cranberry sauce. I'm glad you're paying attention to my Twitter feed. That's
you and Mike DeCourcy, man. I thought cranberry sauce and sweet potatoes are amazing, and you guys are both just,
You like cranberry sauce?
Yeah, I like cranberry sauce. Because I like to make little sandwiches with turkey and potatoes and stuffing on there, and then you put some cranberry sauce on it, and it ties it all together. Cranberry sauce is amazing.
I agreed with your take on Moana, but I don't necessarily agree with this one. So, but no, I've bought a couple of things online, but I'm one of those people that tries to avoid Black Friday like the flu. So
well, okay, so that's typically smart. You do want to avoid Black Friday actually going to the stores.
Exactly.
But when it comes to shopping online, sometimes Black Friday can be great. And our friends at Home Field Apparel have an incredible Black Friday deal. And so we want to talk about that here for just a minute. The promo code that you need is Brink Black Friday. Blink Black Friday. And you get 30% off your first purchase. Okay, now it's an entire order. So whatever you put in your cart, Blink Black Friday, 30% off. I know, it's a huge discount. It's the biggest discount I've ever seen Home Field give. And you can use that for any of the items there. So, they've got all the football-themed shirts that they've put out. If you haven't seen the one with Xander Diamant yet, it's great. Go check those out. But if you're in the mood for basketball, they've got some excellent basketball-themed apparel. They've, of course, got the Bison hoodie that you can get there. Home Field's entire thing is they go and they find these old, unused, vintage logos that are so interesting and so unique because you can't find them anywhere else. And they put it on some of the most comfortable material that you'll ever find. And it's material that stays comfortable even after you wash it, which isn't always the case. And so I know I'm getting a bunch of Christmas presents for folks from Home Field, so I plan on using my my Black Friday discount code there. We recommend that you do it too. If you want to go directly to the IU collection, you can just go to homefieldiu.com, and that'll show you all the IU items. Again, use the promo code Blink Black Friday, and that works on other items too. So maybe you went to a different school, or you have family members that went somewhere else. They have over 60 schools there with all this really interesting, unique apparel. So go to homefieldapparel.com, use that promo code Brink Black Friday, and it's Brink Black Friday. Brink. Dang it. It's really hard to say. Okay.
Yeah,
Brink,
it's a tongue
podcast on the Brink. Black Friday.
It's a tongue twister.
Yes, it is.
Twister. So
it is.
BRINK.
Okay. Black Friday.
If you type in Blink, you probably won't get your 30%. So
yes. Okay, so go to homefieldapparel.com. So to me, Alex, the biggest, of all the questions that hang over this team heading into December, I think the biggest one is, what is the status of Rob Phinisee? Because, I talked about some of my concerns about the offense when this team gets better scouted and some of the easy looks dry up. I think Rob Phinisee becomes hugely important to settle this team down, get them into the things they want to get into, be a guy who can set other guys up. And his defensive importance is, I think, self-evident to everybody. I mean, Indiana's ability to control dribblers is so much better when he's out there on the court, even in his limited fashion, that he's been so far this year. So, Archie talked about in the postgame, he's dealing with a bunch of things. We've heard about the abdominal injury. He got, I don't remember what game it was, Troy or North Alabama at the end of the game when he got hit really hard going to the basket. It seems like there may be some lingering issues from that. Obviously, he got hit in the head again. Protect your head, Rob. That was just another freak thing, just like last year's. It's so scary to see that for him, for a guy who had that concussion issue last year. So, obviously we all care first and foremost about him just getting healthy so that he can go out there and play basketball. But I just, he's not always going to be the guy that his numbers scream off the stat sheet, but I continue to feel like he's the straw that stirs the drink for this team on both ends. Like Devontae Green, I think, is the more explosive scorer, and, Trace is the guy on the inside. But Rob is so important to what this team is going to do against better teams. Kind of assess that, and then do you have any insight at all on his health, when we can expect him back, how serious this is? Like, is this Archie kind of doing a little load management, even though he hates load management, and just trying to, kind of get him healthy? Like, what? Can you give me something happy to go into Thanksgiving with about Rob, please?
Well, Archie suggested that Rob tape Advil to his body and then just kind of absorb that. So that
Archie was in kind of a jovial mood after that last game.
I told you he likes this team. He's being a lot more. He's joking around a lot more.
I liked his line about how there's no Thanksgiving in college basketball.
I actually thought that maybe just putting him in bubble wrap would be better. Just to kind of make sure that they keep him healthy. I try to watch guys when they're out. Like, how are they walking around? Are they smiling? Do they look like they're in pain? Do they look like they're uncomfortable? Like Rob Phinisee, even back to the game where he was out with strep throat, and then the last game, he's smiling and joking and laughing around. So I'm thinking, if he's like in serious pain, like I don't think he would be looking so chipper. Maybe he was just looking forward to, the Thanksgiving meal that he was getting ready to devour with his teammates. But I don't think it was that. I think he's.
And if his concussion was really bad, he wouldn't be out like in the arena, right?
Right. That was the thing I started to get worried about the other day because there was, I got there early and kind of went out to the court and watched guys warm up, and then all of a sudden he's not there. So I'm kind of waiting to look to see when he comes out, and I'm thinking, well, if he doesn't come out, then does that mean he has a concussion? Because what other reason would you not come to the bench other than you're like sick, throwing up, or you're concussed? But he came out with a big smile and said hi to everybody and kind of went out on the sideline and watched warm up. So I think it's not load management, obviously, because there's no load management in college basketball, Jerod. But I think if this was an NCAA tournament or a must-win game, he's probably out there. He's clearly, I don't want to call him injury prone. He's clearly had some bad luck in terms of just getting some unfortunate shots in games. He's had the illness. So before the season, I called him Indiana's most important player. I didn't call him the best player, but I think he's the most important, and I kind of stand by that. I think if Indiana is going to have the month of December that they really need to have to establish the baseline, that Rob's got to be a big part of it. I think the encouraging thing was Archie didn't say when he was asked kind of about a timeline, or I don't know if he was even asked. I think he just kind of offered it up. They were hoping to get him back this week. So to me, that suggests something where, they're trying to kind of be as diligent as possible and give him a little extra time. But I'd be pretty surprised if we don't see him back on the court soon. My bigger concern is I just don't think so far this season he's looked like himself. I think he's had moments where he's looked, healthy, but he's also had some moments where you just say, well, this isn't 100% of Rob Phinisee. So I think he's got to get ramped back up and kind of in the flow of things sooner rather than later, because Armand Franklin's doing a really good job right now. But I think once the schedule kind of toughens up, I think they're going to need to be able to play Rob for at least 25 minutes a game. So we'll see. Hopefully, for his sake, it's nothing serious that's going to linger on the rest of the season, because that would be unfortunate. And we saw last season how having him out for an extended period and not having him 100% really affected the performance of the team.
So, Alex, another guy who I think it's probably fair to be a little bit concerned about at this point. And I said this before, that I wasn't going to be worried about anything that that happened with him in November, because he's a guy that we've seen play in big games. And so, once December hit is when I was really going to start, kind of assessing his performance. But I have to admit, Deron Davis has done a lot less than I thought he would thus far. Whether that's because he's dealt with nagging injuries, because he just hasn't really gotten to the flow of what's been going on, I don't really know. But he's played less than 20% of the minutes, and he's only missed one game. So, he's been in 5 games. He hasn't looked real good when he's been out there, outside of a few possessions where he kind of looked like his old self, really wanting to dominate down low. He hasn't really been that assertive offensively. Defensively, it's been, I guess I'll charitably call it a mixed bag, but it's really probably been more bad than good, just because he doesn't seem like he can move very well, and he's got the savvy and instincts. Like, he's getting blocks, he's getting steals, like he still can be a disruptive defender, but on a possession by possession basis, I felt like he's been a lot of times worse this year than I remember him being. What do you think about Deron right now? Because I still think he's going to be an important guy for this team. As a senior, when you're going into venues in the Big Ten and you need a guy that you can pound it down low to, he's been good in zones. He's a guy that is a good passer. Like, I think he can provide so many things for this team. And I don't want to overreact to November. I'm keeping open-minded about it, but I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't viscerally a little bit concerned about what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I think I don't want to say it's time to hit the panic button, but we're getting close with Deron, because he used to, he's never been even going back to the first time I saw him play, which was before his freshman year of high school, which when he was a man child back in those days, just dominating people. He's never been like an overpowering athlete, but he's at least been a guy that you've been able to throw the ball into the post and he can just kind of make a move with not explosively, but quick enough to kind of get a shot off or before the defense gets to him.
Like that, who did he have that spin move against? Was that North Alabama or somebody or Portland State?
He had won this season, but he used to do that all the time. And
that's what I mean. That was the old Duran. It was like, hey, there it is.
Yeah, he's not doing that with any consistency right now. He doesn't get up and down the floor very well. So I don't know what the expectation should be for him moving forward. And if I was making a list of guys, 1 to 11 right now on this team, in terms of what I'm kind of expecting their role to be, like 1 biggest role, 11 least role going forward, he's for me in the bottom 2 spots right now, because I'm just not seeing enough encouraging moments from him to suggest that he should be playing anymore. Early in the season, and we talked about this a lot off the podcast, I wondered kind of what Joey Brink had done to differentiate himself from Duran, and obviously he had a really big summer, but now the gap between those guys to me is pretty significant. Joey's just been the better offensive player for sure when he's been in there. Defensively, I think going into the season, most of us would have probably thought that Duran was the better defender, but right now, to me, it looks like a wash at best, and Joey may be better on that end. So what's it going to take for Duran to get back into the rotation? To me, he just, I don't know. He doesn't look, I don't want to say he looks like he's not healthy, but he's just, I don't know if the injuries have finally caught up to him, the wear and tear, but he just doesn't look like the player that he once was. And that's unfortunate for him in his senior year, but I'm not saying that he's not going to have his games where maybe Indiana goes to him and he has a couple key moments, some key baskets, but I'd say there's reasons to be concerned about what he's going to be able to give the rest of the way.
Yeah,
it's tough for him, and but that's objectively, and I've watched the games up close, and you've watched everyone on TV. I mean, is there any, to you watching the games, is there any? Do you agree with me that if you're making a list of this team right now, 1 through 11, that he's in somewhere probably in the bottom 2? Is that off base?
I think it's indisputable at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think? What do you think's his role going forward? Is he going to be completely kind of stashed on the bench, or do you think he's going to have some moments where he gives Indiana something?
I think I think he might. I think and look, part of this is because I think Joey Brink has brought a lot to the table so far, even with his limitations. Trace Jackson Davis is better than I thought he was, and much more ready to contribute from day one than I thought he would be. And that helps, and I think Race Thompson's been really good too, and he's been better than I thought, this early in kind of his first season back as a full-time player. So if you had told me all of those things were going to happen, I might have lowered my expectation a little bit for how much Duran would play, just coming into the season, just because now there's much more, more reason to have confidence in some of those other big guys. And I think that's fine, and I think that's good. I think Duran will operate a lot better with limited minutes, because he's just been a guy that the more he's been exposed out there on the court, the more he has seemed to get hurt. But, I don't know. Maybe I guess I'm holding out hope more than anything that when his number gets called at times this year, maybe it's against Michigan State, maybe it's in a couple weeks at Wisconsin. I just feel like in some of these road venues where he's been, and in big games where he's really been a guy Indiana can count on when he's been healthy, that he's still going to have a role to play. And I'm holding out hope because I think Indiana's going to need that. I think at some point you need a guy who's got experience, who's not going to be afraid of the moment, who can both score and pass, and who can be a disruptive defender when he's kind of locked in and feeling good. I don't know how much confidence I have in it right now, but I'm holding out hope that he can still kind of fill that role. Maybe it will be with fewer minutes, and almost surely will be, but I still think he can be one of those guys you kind of look back and it's like, wow, it's a good thing we had Duran for those 2, 3, 4 games. He really helped us get those wins. That to me is what his role can be now, and what I hope it is, because I still think it can be a really important one for a team that's going to, even in a best case scenario, maybe not a best case scenario, but in a median projection for this team, probably still projects to be somewhere around the bubble of the NCAA tournament, and 2, 3, or 4 wins could really swing the season. One other guy that I want to talk about before we get out of here is Justin Smith. who, we saw him really play well in the exhibition game. The first couple games, it's like, okay, is this real? Some of these improvements. And I'm really encouraged by what I've seen from him. I thought he had the one game, I think it was against North Alabama, where I didn't think he played all that well. And, we saw some of the body language that we don't like from him, and his defense wasn't quite as good. But outside of those 20 minutes, I think he's been really, really good so far this season. Playing within himself offensively, being a guy who's really gone to the offensive glass, limiting his turnovers. And what I really like is he's been so much more disruptive defensively. His block percentage of 2.9%, his steal rate of 4.3%. I mean, those would be, far and away career highs for him in both categories. And you really saw in that Louisiana Tech game, which in some ways to me was his most impressive performance because he wasn't getting involved offensively, but I thought he continued playing really good defense for Indiana for most of the game. It was really a guy in the second half, especially when things were kind of going down. He made some plays defensively, that kind of allowed Indiana to keep that 10, 12, 14 point cushion. So I'm encouraged by what I've seen from him. As with all these guys, we'll see what happens when the competition gets better. But I like the habits that he's bringing to the court, the decisions that he's making offensively. And look, he's 3 of 9 from 3-point range, which is an extremely small sample size. But if he could somehow maintain an efficiency of 33%, taking a little more than 1 3 per game, you can live with that because that makes him a credible threat out there in some of these lineups where if he's playing the 3, you've only got 2 shooters. Now, will he be able to sustain that? I don't know. And that was 2 for 2 in the Troy game, and he's been 1 for 7 in the other games. Again, limited sample size, but on balance, I'm really pleased with how the early part of his junior year has gone.
Yeah, I don't even look at it from a statistical standpoint with him at this point to kind of point to what I see as the biggest improvement. He's just so much more active in the paint and around the basket than I've seen in the past. There's not really a stat, I don't think, on this. But
I think you see some of that in the blocks and steals. I mean, that's, some of that is just because he's more active and he's
right. In the offensive rebounding, he's done this at least 4 or 5 times that I can just remember off the top of my head, and maybe more, where he's like tipped the ball to a teammate. It was a ball he couldn't grab, but he tipped it to a teammate, and that's saving a possession for your team. That's an ultra valuable thing to have. And I've always kind of said, like, I don't think it's a great comparison because there's so many there's so many things about these two guys that are different, but I think in terms of the strengths of what they can do, some of it's similar. Just kind of try to do some of the good Troy Williams things, which is finish efficiently at the rim, be active on the glass, and be disruptive. And I think he's done a better job of showing restraint, especially on taking, he's probably taken a couple more 3-pointers so far that Archie Miller would like. He still has his moments where, he thinks I'm wide open, so I'm going to shoot this. And Archie Miller is probably like, well, I don't really want you shooting that. But you kind of live with it. He's 3 for 9. If he can stay in that range, I think it's fine. But I just think, he has to continue to play to the strengths that he has. And that is using his size and athleticism to be a good rebounder. I mean, Archie's talked consistently about the 2 things that this team has to do: take care of the ball and rebound, right? Justin Smith is a big part of the rebounding puzzle. So he has to continue to just kind of be relentless in that area. I think he's done a good job. And you mentioned the steals and the blocks, but with him, you just want to see that consistent energy. Every minute he's out there giving his best. And so far, I think he's just been, I think he's Indiana's best defender. Archie said that. I agree with it.
Yep.
And I just think he's been a lot more active than what we've seen in the past. That's not a knock on how he played last year, because I thought he has moments, but this year we're seeing it with more consistency. And I think that's an encouraging sign.
Yeah, and to your point, with him, I do think stats can sometimes be misleading. Like, for example, his defensive rebounding rate right now is worse than it's the lowest of his career, and he's never had more than 4 defensive rebounds in a game. But I think part of that is just because he's surrounded by so many great rebounders right now, and I feel like
his offensive rebounding is up, right?
Yeah, his offensive rebounding is way up. And he's getting, 3, 2, 2, 5, 3. His offensive rebounding has been good, but I feel like he's been a good defensive rebounder. Just sometimes he's boxing his man out and Race Thompson's grabbing it or Trace Jackson Davis is grabbing it. Rebounding is, really projecting to be a real strength for this team. So that's where context is important, but I think some of the numbers that you want to see from him, are good. And I think more importantly, the eye test. He has seemed more engaged, more kind of enthusiastic, more vocal, all those things that you want to see from a guy as he transitions from sophomore to junior year. And that's huge. That's absolutely got to continue for this Indiana team to get where it wants to go. What else, Alex, is, kind of jumps out to you about this team? And what else are you most interested to see as we head into, obviously with the South Dakota State game? And I think you're right in terms of how to watch that game. Can Indiana put together longer stretches of good play? Because that is a next step for this team. We've seen spurts where they've been outstanding, and then other spurts where they just kind of had to, nurse a lead a little bit because, and nurse it at the free throw line. Which, hey, at least they're making enough free throws this year that they can actually do that. But what are some of the other things that you're really interested to see moving forward and that you hope that we get some answers to here in December?
Yeah. I'm obviously as I said earlier, not to just kind of glance over the South Dakota State but I'm most interested just to see how Indiana handles Florida State on Tuesday. It'll be after that game the next time we talk, so we'll have plenty to talk about. So I think the next podcast is going to have, the tone, I think, of that discussion is going to be largely dictated by what happens in that game, right? If they win these next two games and they're 8-0, we're going to be previewing Wisconsin and thinking, now if they go to Wisconsin and win, maybe this has the makings of a team that deserves to be ranked coming up here soon. Now, if they stumble against Florida State and are overmatched by their size and athleticism, I think we're going to say, wow, that cupcake schedule that they played in November didn't really help them get prepared, and this team's got a lot of work to do. So I think we're going to learn a lot from that game. There's no doubt about that. The thing that I'm just really looking forward to the most out of December is those 4 non-conference games, because the more I study them all, they almost all feel like toss-up games to me. None of them are. There's a case to be made that Indiana could win all 4, and then you can also look and say these are all games they could potentially lose. I think it's going to be a very intriguing month, and UConn has kind of been up and down, but they've got some good wins. It's going to be in MSG against a pro UConn crowd. Arkansas is unbeaten, I think, to this point, ranked ahead of Indiana and Ken Pom. Notre Dame and Indy is always just a tough game, and I think they've got some experience. They got a really good big man. I'm looking forward to that. So it's going to be one heck of a month. It's going to be a lot better December than I think we've seen in a long time in terms of competition. And you're used to having those Savannah States or Alcorn State or whoever else tucked there at the end of the month, and this schedule just doesn't have it. So I think it's going to be a fascinating month from just learning a lot about this team perspective.
Yep. So you're right. We will be back next week. We'll do it after that Florida State game, react to what we see there. Anything else in closing before we wrap up and get ready to go eat some cranberry sauce?
Yeah, I want your top 5. I want your power rankings, top 5 things that you will target for your plate on your Thanksgiving meal. What are your top 5 items?
Stuffing will definitely be there.
Please don't say cranberry sauce.
No. Oh, no, cranberry sauce is going to be on there. You got to have the cranberry sauce. I actually like having a little bit of cranberry sauce in each bite. I'm telling you, I'm a big fan of cranberry sauce. Got to have rolls. Actually, my wife and I are going to make a broccoli casserole. That's kind of like a tradition in her family. So we're making that. And then stuffing and sweet potatoes. I'm making the sweet potatoes this year. So those are the things that will be on the first plate.
Yeah, I think you need to address what DeCourcy is his sweet potato take, because that was just really disappointing. But that's a good list. As we approach Thanksgiving, it's just I think a good time just to say to the audience, thank you for continuing to listen, putting up with us for all these years. And I know Jerod and I enjoy doing this podcast every week. We enjoy all the feedback that we receive on it, and we're thankful for our audience and for everybody who continues to listen to our sponsors and everyone who's supported us along the way. And we're looking forward to hopefully being back with you next week and having a conversation about an 8-0 team that is going to maybe try to go to Wisconsin and win for the first time since the 1700s.
Feels like it. Feels like it. Yeah, I'm not thankful for the Kohl Center. That place it knows where it can go.
Game looks a lot more winnable than it did.
It sure does.
A couple weeks ago.
It sure does.
Although Wisconsin's probably going to have their backs up against the wall, given the fact that they're probably going to be on a 3-game losing streak at that point. So
yeah, that is true. Yeah, now, I obviously echo what you said about being thankful for the audience. And I just want to say, I'm thankful for the team and the coaches. We get on here and, we talk about these guys and analyze them, and sometimes are critical and pick things apart. But, those guys, they work really hard, and I think they've played really hard, and they're out there trying to do the right things and trying to give us a winner. And obviously it hasn't happened, much the last 3 seasons. But, you can tell with this group, they seem to be having fun together, and they seem to really, even when they're making mistakes, most of the mistakes are mistakes of effort. Like, it feels like this team is really, playing hard. And so I'm thankful for their efforts and how hard they're working to bring Indiana back to the NCAA tournament and give us, winning teams to talk about. So it's easy to, I think, sometimes get lost in that when we want the defense to be better and we want this to be better. But, those guys, not only do they give us, I think, a team that we can be proud to watch, win or lose, but they all seem like really great guys and really great representatives of the university. And you haven't seen a lot of issues recently, and the academic performance has been better. So all the things that you kind of want to see out of your program, I feel like Indiana has right now. Now let's just get to that next step where you get more of the wins, because obviously we want to see that too. But it's a program that I'm proud to talk about and proud to cover. So grateful for that.
Absolutely. Everybody have a great, hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving, and we'll be back probably
next Wednesday, probably.
I don't know about next Wednesday. Yeah, we'll see. Considering I'll probably going to be up till about 2 a.m. that night, and
that's true.
I'm going to stay up in Bloomington, so we may have to rearrange some things, but we'll figure it out. We'll probably want to do a Florida State recap and a look ahead to Wisconsin. Maybe we can get Bard on.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good call. Maybe Indiana will beat Florida State, and we'll move into the top 100 in the Bart Torvik rankings. Indiana's been, I'm kidding, we're not that low, but it feels like we've been really low.
40-something, I think, right?
Yeah, I know. We've been low. All right, thanks, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, and we will talk to you next week.